Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today, we're kicking things off with a question. It's one that might just turn your understanding yourself inside out. What if your greatest obstacle, that quiet force holding you back, what if it isn't the world outside your window, but something far closer?
Yeah.
Something, within your own mind.
That is a profound question, isn't it? And it really sits at the very heart of what we're dissecting today. We've had the chance, the privilege really, of immersing ourselves in this truly fascinating audiobook transcript. It's called, quite directly, How to Control Your Mind. And our mission with this deep dive, well, it's not just to scratch the surface. We want to peel back the layers, expose the hidden architects that are subtly, yet really profoundly influencing your thoughts, your emotions.
Hi.
And yeah, every decision you make every single day, we're talking about unveiling how a surprisingly large chunk of your life operates on what we could call, autopilot.
That's it, exactly. And for you, our listener, the real power here isn't just about, understanding these hidden gears turning. It's about arming you with actionable, practical strategies. And these aren't just vague theories floating around. We're discussing techniques that are meticulously backed by cutting-edge science, psychology, neuroscience. The ultimate goal, it's genuinely to help you reclaim complete mental sovereignty, to take the steering wheel firmly back into your own hands, and to consciously begin shaping the reality you've always yearned for, instead of just maybe passively accepting the one that's been handed to you. Are you ready to unlock a level of mental power you might not even realize you possess? Let's really get into this.
Absolutely, because what we're about to explore is it's far more than just another self-help concept. It's really an examination of the foundational operating system of your very existence. It's a deep dive into the code that runs your life.
Okay, let's plunge right in then. We're calling this section the unseen controller, your subconscious mind. Now, if you're like most people, you probably walk through your day with this firm belief, right? That you are entirely in charge. You're the conscious captain of your ship. You make deliberate choices, steer with full intent, choose every thought, every reaction. It feels like conscious choice, definitely, that sense of free will.
Right. But what's truly astonishing and what the insights from this audiobook fundamentally challenge is that deeply ingrained belief. It lays bare a rather startling truth, and it's this. A staggering 95% of your daily decisions, your actions, your emotional responses, they're actually initiated and made before your conscious mind even has a chance to register them. Just think about that for a second. The vast majority of what you do, how you react, even what you feel throughout your day, it's already in motion. It's already been sort of set in stone long before your conscious awareness catches up. It's like a silent, powerful predetermination.
Wow, 95%. That's huge. That's quite a revelation. So my thoughts, my emotions, even seemingly major decisions, they're being essentially hijacked. And not by some external force, but by my own internal, unconscious mental programming. That's almost, unsettling to think about. It's like realizing I'm a character in a play and someone else already wrote most of my lines and I'm just performing them, completely unaware.
That's a powerful way to frame it, actually. The material clarifies that your deeply ingrained habits, your fears, and particularly those conditioned beliefs, the ones you never consciously chose for yourself. They are the silent directors. They dictate most of what you do, often pulling you in directions you don't consciously want to go. And this isn't about a lack of willpower or some personal failing or even being inherently incapable. Not at all. Instead, those moments, the ones, where you hesitate when you know you should act, or the goals you enthusiastically start only to abandon them later, or that insidious little voice of self-doubt that creeps in just as you're about to take a leap, they're not really reflections of your true capability. What's happening, according to this, is that your mind is operating on an autopilot script. A script that was, as the audiobook starkly puts it, written long, long ago. You're effectively playing out a pre-programmed role, often one that just doesn't serve your current goals or aspirations anymore.
Okay, so if that's the case, we're really talking about a profound form of self-mastery here, aren't we? Because the next crucial idea presented is the mind control sequence, mastering yourself. And it's really important to be clear, this isn't about manipulating other people or, cheap mental tricks or anything like that. This is fundamentally about turning that powerful lens of focus inward, mastering your own internal landscape.
That's exactly right. The core truth illuminated throughout this deep dive is truly profound, and it's this. Every single limitation you've ever encountered in your life, every recurring struggle, every single gnawing frustration you felt, it ultimately boils down to one fundamental factor, your ability, or maybe lack thereof, to effectively control your own mind. I mean, consider the implications. If you cannot control your focus, you will inevitably find yourself constantly distracted, your energy scattered everywhere. If you can't master your emotions, you'll perpetually be reactive, like a ship tossed about by external events, unable to steer your own course. And maybe most critically, if you cannot control your thoughts, you are, by definition, engaged in a constant, exhausting war with yourself. It's a battle that just consumes immense internal resources.
That resonates deeply. Yeah, it makes so much sense when you put it like that. If your mind is continually running on these old, unexamined scripts, you're not just fighting an uphill battle, you're literally fighting against yourself. The material really drives home the stark reality that the vast majority of people live their lives as, well, prisoners of their own mind,
Mm-hmm.
often completely unaware that their thinking isn't really a reflection of objective reality at all, but it's just a collection of deeply conditioned patterns, things inherited or absorbed that have been playing on a loop for years, maybe even decades.
And this, the material explains, is precisely why some individuals manage to succeed against truly incredible odds. They seem to defy all external circumstances, while others, despite having every apparent advantage, intelligence, resources, opportunities, still somehow fall short of their potential. It's not just about innate intelligence or raw talent alone. It really comes down to mental discipline, the ability to direct your focus, to direct your thoughts where you want them to go. Your mind, in essence, is either your most formidable weapon, capable of conquering any challenge, or tragically, it becomes your greatest weakness, sabotaging your every effort. The crucial difference lies simply in who controls whom. It's an active, dynamic relationship, not some passive state. You're either the master or you are the servant.
Which brings us perfectly to the illusion of control, how we're programmed. This is where the insights get truly fascinating because it challenges that notion we just discussed again. Are you really in charge? The material suggests quite strongly that most of what we think and feel isn't consciously chosen at all. Our brain, in its remarkable efficiency, is actually predicting our responses milliseconds before we even consciously realize we're having them.
And importantly, this isn't just some philosophical musing. It's a revelation consistently backed by cutting-edge neuroscience. Brain imaging studies have demonstrably shown that decisions are initiated in the subconscious regions of the brain before they bubble up to our conscious awareness. So by the time you perceive yourself as making a conscious choice, like, say, feeling a surge of anger in response to a comment or that wave of anxiety before a presentation, your brain has already activated that course. It's already set the response in motion, and it's doing that based on its deeply ingrained programming and all its accumulated past experiences. Your conscious mind is often just playing catch-up, providing a sort of narrative for what has already begun to unfold.
Wow. So, in those moments when I feel a sudden rush of anger or anxiety, it's not that I consciously decided to feel that way, it just happened. That's the automatic script playing out then. And I imagine the same applies to that crippling procrastination that derails my best plans. Or those patterns of self-sabotage that seem to pop up just as I'm on the verge of success. Or even those regrettable stress reactions that I later wish I could take back. It's not necessarily a lack of willpower in that specific moment. It's more that my subconscious is already running the show, and my conscious mind is just scrambling to rationalize or understand it after the fact.
Precisely. And this understanding is absolutely critical because it explains exactly why our conscious efforts to change often fall flat. Like simply telling yourself, okay, I'll stop overthinking this time, or I'll definitely be more confident tomorrow.
Yeah.
Why don't those stick? Well, unless you identify and actually address that underlying subconscious programming, those conscious affirmations are fighting a massive uphill battle. They're up against a deeply wired, far more powerful system. It's like trying to change the display on your computer screen, making it show new words without ever actually changing the core operating system or the underlying code. The surface might shift momentarily, sure, but the fundamental program just stays the same. It eventually reverts to its default setting.
That's a really powerful and relatable analogy,
Yeah.
which leads us perfectly into truly understanding the two minds, conscious versus subconscious. It seems absolutely crucial to distinguish between these two major parts and really grasp how differently they function. Can you break that down for us?
Oh, it's not just different, it's a profound distinction. Grasping it is fundamental to any kind of self-mastery. So the conscious mind, that's the part of you that you're aware of right now, the part listening to me, interpreting my words, making logical connections, maybe even thinking about what you'll have for dinner later.
Yeah.
That's your conscious mind. This is where your logical thinking happens, your explicit decision-making, reasoning, planning, analysis,
Yeah.
all that stuff. It's the voice you hear when you're consciously trying to solve a complex problem or weigh intricate options. However, and here's the crucial kicker from the material, it only accounts for about 5%. Just 5% of your daily thoughts and actions. It is, to borrow that classic metaphor, just the tip of the iceberg. Visible, known, but only a tiny fraction of the whole picture.
Okay, so if 5% is the conscious tip, that means a massive 95% is lurking below the surface. That's where the subconscious mind comes in, I assume. And the material vividly describes it as an unseen supercomputer. That immediately conveys a sense of immense power, doesn't it?
It is indeed an incredibly powerful, multifaceted processor. It's running 247. The subconscious mind operates tirelessly in the background, without any conscious effort from you, controls all your automatic bodily functions, things like your breathing, your heartbeat, blinking, digestion. You don't think about those. But far more profoundly for our discussion today, it's the vast repository, the storehouse for all your deeply ingrained habits, your phobias, your automatic fears, and all your reflexive emotional responses. This is the realm where your true mental power, your untapped potential, really resides. However, it's also paradoxically the very place where your limiting beliefs, your emotional baggage, and those self-defeating patterns are held and reinforced, often completely unbeknownst to you.
And the material uses the analogy of the subconscious as a vast library. I find that incredibly helpful. So it literally stores every single experience, every emotion, every belief you've ever had, right from childhood onwards. So if as a child you were constantly told you're not good enough or you're too sensitive, that gets meticulously filed away in this library. Or if you experienced a profound humiliation after, say, a public failure, that gets tagged and filed as a kind of warning for future similar situations.
Precisely. These meticulously stored experiences, often accompanied by really intense emotions, then serve as the blueprints. They shape your behavior in ways you don't even consciously realize or intend. This profound, silent programming is exactly why people can find themselves repeating the same mistakes over and over, or gravitating towards the same types of toxic relationships, or perpetually struggling with the same fears and insecurities. No matter how desperately they consciously try to change their external circumstances or their rational thinking, they are, in essence, battling against a subconscious program, an internal script that has already decided their automatic response, often long before they even have a conscious thought about it. The script isn't just written, it's actively being followed day in, day out.
But there's a profoundly hopeful truth embedded in this understanding too, isn't there? Because the material explicitly discusses the malleability of the subconscious, specifically highlighting the concept of neuroplasticity. So this isn't some rigid, unchangeable life sentence. My subconscious mind isn't set in stone. It's constantly adapting, learning, reshaping itself.
That is indeed the truly liberating insight. It's the scientific foundation for all personal transformation, really. Neuroplasticity is your brain's astonishing inherent ability to physically rewire itself. It means that the intricate neural pathways associated with even your deepest patterns of thought, your most ingrained habits, your core beliefs, they're not fixed. They're not permanent. They can be rewired, strengthened, or even pruned away entirely. You can literally build new mental highways within your brain, creating new default responses. But, and this is the absolutely crucial part that the material emphasizes, this radical rewiring only happens if you know how to access that subconscious mind directly and intentionally. You can't just passively hope it changes on its own or just fight it with conscious willpower. It requires deliberate intervention.
Okay, let's delve deeper into how this subconscious power actually acts as the architect of reality. Because the material asserts that your subconscious doesn't just passively store past experiences, it actively creates future ones, almost like it's manifesting them based on its recorded patterns. So if I consistently expect bad things to happen, I'm genuinely more likely to experience them. And this isn't like mystical woo-woo stuff or bad luck, but it's based on actual neuroscience.
Exactly. This isn't superstition. It's the profound power of your internal filtering system at work. Your subconscious mind is tirelessly scanning your environment, constantly looking for evidence that validates and matches its existing beliefs. It's a fundamental principle of how our brain constructs our perceived reality.
Yeah.
If deep down you harbor a pervasive belief like, I am not capable of success or good things never happen to me, your mind's filtering system, which we'll definitely explore in more detail in a moment, will actively, maybe even aggressively, filter out or simply not register opportunities. It won't see positive feedback or potential solutions that directly contradict that core belief. It literally renders them invisible to your conscious mind.
Wow. So if I'm sort of conditioned for failure, my subconscious will actually subtly help me fail by triggering insidious patterns of procrastination or crippling hesitation or pervasive self-doubt precisely when it matters most. That's not just wild, it's almost, yeah, a terrifying thought if you're not aware of it actually happening.
It is, in fact, a deeply unsettling truth if it's left unaddressed. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, driven by an internal programming that you may not even consciously recognize is running. And this is precisely why the material so powerfully emphasizes that learning to control your mind, to consciously override these default programs, is perhaps the single most potent skill you can ever cultivate. Once you genuinely understand and learn how to override these subconscious programs that have been silently limiting you, you literally begin to shape your life, your experiences, and your outcomes in ways you previously thought were utterly impossible. You transition from being a passenger in your own life to becoming the conscious, deliberate architect of your reality. You start wielding immense power you didn't even know you had.
And a key player in this whole process, a concept truly highlighted in the material, is something called the reticular activating system, or RAS. It's described as a built-in filtering system. So tell us, how exactly does our mind act as this filter, and what specifically is the RAS doing for us?
The RES is absolutely vital. It's a true marvel of neural engineering, really, because our brains are constantly bombarded with an unbelievable amount of sensory data every single second. I mean, think about it. Sights, sounds, smells, textures, internal sensations, memories, thoughts. It's an overwhelming flood. If we were consciously aware of and processing all of that information simultaneously, we would be utterly paralyzed. We couldn't function. So the RES acts as your brain's indispensable mental gatekeeper. Think of it like a sophisticated air traffic controller for information. It processes this massive inflow of data, and based on what it deems important or relevant according to your existing subconscious programming, it decides what information gets through to your conscious awareness and what can be safely, or maybe sometimes unsafely, ignored.
Okay, so the classic example from the material makes perfect sense now. You buy a new car, say a specific blue sedan, and suddenly you start seeing that exact make, model, and color absolutely everywhere. It's not that suddenly tons more people started driving that car, it's just that your RAS suddenly marked it as relevant to you, so it started filtering it into your awareness.
Precisely. And this same powerful filtering process applies with even more profound implications to your core beliefs. If your subconscious believes, for instance, I am not good enough or opportunities never come my way, your RAS will relentlessly filter reality to reinforce that very belief. It becomes its mission. It will unconsciously make you hyper-aware of every rejection, every small failure, every critical comment you encounter, while simultaneously completely ignoring, downplaying, or even outright dismissing any signs of your capability, your worth, or any incoming opportunities that contradict the belief. Your brain isn't just passively receiving reality, it is actively, ceaselessly seeking evidence for what it already believes to be true.
So my entire perceived reality, it's quite literally being constructed moment by moment by the unique lens through which I view the world. And that lens, that filter, is fundamentally programmed by my subconscious beliefs. That's a truly profound and, yeah, somewhat unsettling thought, isn't it? It means we're all walking around in a reality largely of our own making, often without even realizing it.
It completely shifts the entire paradigm of personal responsibility and potential, doesn't it?
Hey, wait.
And what's even more crucial is understanding how these mental programs that control you were originally formed in the first place. From the very moment you were born, your subconscious mind has been diligently recording everything, like a tireless scribe. Every experience, every single word spoken to you by parents, teachers, peers, every emotional reaction you've had or even observed in others. These continuous recordings form the automatic scripts that then dictate how you reflexively respond to the world, to challenges, and to opportunities later in life.
Okay, so if I was consistently praised as a child and told, you're smart, you can achieve anything you set your mind to, my subconscious diligently stored that, and my RAS then helped reinforce it by noticing evidence of my capabilities everywhere. But conversely, if I was frequently told, be careful, life is hard, don't take risks, or you're not good at that, that got stored too, and my mind just keeps filtering the world through that negative or cautious lens, no matter how hard I consciously try to prove myself otherwise. That's the insidious trap.
That's the absolute core realization. The vast majority of these programs, these foundational scripts, were not consciously chosen by you. Not at all. They were installed, as the material eloquently puts it, by your early experiences, by your parents, your teachers, your cultural environment, and often by single, impactful, emotional events that occurred long before you were even old enough to question them or critically evaluate them. They run in these persistent loops, like a constant, often unheard soundtrack beneath your conscious awareness, guiding your reactions and decisions without you even noticing.
So the critical, perhaps even confronting question then becomes, whose voice is actually controlling my mind right now? Because if I don't actively take conscious control of this pervasive mental programming, that I'm essentially condemned, maybe that's a strong word, but sort of destined to live my entire life running outdated scripts. Scripts that were, in many cases, written by other people, by past experiences, and often by past limitations that are no longer relevant. That is a profoundly powerful challenge for you, the listener, to really internalize.
It truly is. It shifts the responsibility squarely and irrevocably back to the individual. Understanding this deep-seated programming isn't just intellectual curiosity. It's the absolutely essential first step. The first step towards actively authoring your own mental script and, by direct extension, consciously designing and building your own desired reality. It's about becoming the programmer, not just remaining the program.
Speaking of rewriting the script, let's talk about rewiring the operating system, the science of neuroplasticity. This is such a liberating concept. The material says, quite plainly, you are not your thoughts.
Yeah.
Your worries, your insecurities, your self-defeating habits, these aren't who you fundamentally are. They are simply deeply ingrained mental habits running in repetitive loops, shaped and reinforced by consistent repetition over time. That's a seismic shift in perspective for many people who identify so strongly with their negative internal monologue, isn't it?
It is a profoundly liberating truth because it means these pervasive thoughts are not fixed. They're not permanent fixtures of your identity. They are, quite literally, neural pathways in your brain, physical connections. And they can absolutely be rewritten. The material uses an excellent computer analogy here. Your subconscious is the underlying operating system. It's tirelessly running everything in the background, mostly out of sight. Your conscious mind is merely the user interface, the screen you interact with daily. The fundamental problem for so many people is that they're running on outdated mental software. Beliefs and programs they absorb from childhood or difficult experiences that just no longer serve their adult ambitions or their highest potential.
And the danger here, as you mentioned, is that the subconscious doesn't actually judge. It doesn't decide if a belief or a program is helpful or harmful, beneficial or detrimental. Its primary directive, as we've discussed, is simply familiarity, what's known. So it just relentlessly repeats what's habitual, like chronic self-doubt or a pattern of self-sabotage or even toxic relationship dynamics, unless we consciously and intentionally intervene. It's simply doing its job, faithfully executing its programming, good or bad.
Exactly. It operates purely on the principle of efficiency and familiarity. That's its main job description. And that brings us to the subconscious blueprint, how beliefs were installed. This is fascinating. The material powerfully highlights a critical developmental period, basically from birth to approximately age 7. During these profoundly formative years, your brain operates primarily in what are known as theta waves. This is a state of deep suggestibility and receptivity, almost like a hypnotic trance. The mind is like a super absorbent sponge. It's soaking up every experience, every suggestion, every emotional nuance without question, without any real critical filtration happening yet. This is the period when the core blueprint, the foundational operating system of your mind, is indelibly formed.
Wow. So if a child is consistently praised, affirmed, told, you're incredibly smart, you can achieve anything, that, through repetition and emotional intensity, directly creates a core belief of confidence and capability right in that blueprint. But conversely, if they're constantly told, be careful, life is hard, don't take risks, or they experience repeated emotional invalidation, then deep-seated patterns of fear, hesitation, and self-doubt get installed right into that foundational blueprint. And this can happen from seemingly innocuous or small experiences too, right? Like a single painful childhood embarrassment leading to a lifelong debilitating fear of public speaking, even if rationally it makes absolutely no sense as an adult.
Precisely. The subconscious takes these individual experiences, especially those laden with strong emotion, and it generalizes them. It builds overarching rules or programs around them that then dictate future behavior, often automatically. And once a belief, whether it's empowering or limiting, is firmly installed in that blueprint, it activates a powerful cognitive bias known as confirmation bias. This is key. Your mind doesn't just passively accept this belief, it actively and relentlessly seeks out evidence to support it, while simultaneously filtering out, ignoring, or even reinterpreting anything that might contradict it. If you believe I'm not good enough, your mind will unconsciously highlight every perceived failure and minimize every success, every compliment. If you believe money is hard to come by, you'll genuinely overlook obvious opportunities right in front of you. It just won't register.
Okay, so this is why simply thinking positive often feels like pushing a massive boulder uphill and ultimately often doesn't work long term. I can repeat conscious affirmations all day long trying to convince myself. But if my subconscious is running an old, deeply conflicting program, my actions, my emotions, my automatic reactions will always inevitably revert back to that default setting. True, lasting change, then, Really requires reprogramming the subconscious at its very core, doesn't it? That's a truly massive paradigm-shifting takeaway from all
It
this.
absolutely is. It moves us beyond superficial fixes to the fundamental levers of genuine change. And the material, thankfully, provides a clear, actionable path for breaking free from mental chains, how to rewrite the program, end quote. It begins crucially with step one, awareness. This is paramount. You simply cannot change what you do not first recognize and acknowledge. You need to become a detached observer of your own internal landscape. Start noticing, identifying the dominant, often hidden beliefs that are truly controlling your life behind the scenes.
So to do this, I need to ask myself some tough questions. Like,
Yeah.
what do I really believe about myself deep down? About
Wow.
success, about love, about happiness, about failure, about my own potential. The material stresses brutal honesty here, doesn't it? No sugarcoating, recognizing that those negative thoughts that pop up automatically, they're just mental programs playing out. They are not immutable facts about who I am. That recognition alone feels like a powerful first step in gaining some clarity and distance.
It's the essential first step, yes, foundational. The next is step two, challenge and replace. This is where you actively begin to dismantle the old programming and install the new. Your subconscious, remember, operates on evidence. It needs concrete proof to accept and integrate new beliefs. It's not easily fooled by wishful thinking. You must actively, deliberately, and consistently seek out proof that contradicts your old limiting beliefs. If you've always thought you weren't good at something, start actively searching for and celebrating even the smallest wins that prove otherwise. Keep a log, maybe. If you thought success was unattainable for someone like you, start noticing and deeply internalizing stories of others who achieved what you want, particularly those who overcame similar odds or backgrounds. The more undeniable evidence you gather, no matter how small it seems, the faster your subconscious begins to actually rewire itself. It's like presenting an overwhelming case to a jury of your inner computer. You need to convince it.
Right, building that case file. And finally, step three, embodiment through action. This resonates so much because it means you can't just think differently. You absolutely have to act differently, consistently. If your subconscious is screaming at you to hesitate, to play it safe, you have to consciously, deliberately take action anyway, even a small action. If it insists you're not capable, you deliberately do something, however small, that pushes you just outside your comfort zone. Each new action isn't just an act, it's a physical rewiring happening in your brain. You're weakening those old, well-worn neural pathways for hesitation or doubt, and simultaneously strengthening the brand new ones for courage and capability. This is the very foundation of neuroplasticity in practice, putting the rewiring into physical, undeniable action.
It brilliantly reinforces the idea that true transformation isn't some passive intellectual exercise you read about. It's an active, engaged participation in sculpting your own brain, your own future. And yes, it requires consistent, courageous effort.
All right, let's transition now to breaking free, strategies for mental reprogramming. Because for many of us, maybe most of us, trying to make lasting change feels like constantly slipping back into old, comfortable, yet unhelpful habits. It's frustrating. The material acknowledges this universal frustration and points to a core reason. It's not a simple choice we're failing at. It's an ongoing battle, really, between your conscious, we'll think of it as the persistent driver of your car wanting to go somewhere new, and your subconscious programming, which acts as the powerful underlying engine, often programmed for the old destination.
That's a truly apt analogy, isn't it? Your conscious desires might be passionately committed to reaching a brand new, exciting destination. Success, health, happiness. But if your subconscious engine is still programmed with old beliefs like, I'm not good enough, or change is simply too hard and too risky, or I don't deserve that, it's like having a GPS system inside you that relentlessly keeps redirecting you back to your old, familiar, perhaps even destructive starting point. The subconscious, as we've discussed, prioritizes familiarity and what it perceives as safety above all else, even if that means subtly resisting your conscious desires for positive, necessary change. This deeply ingrained preference for the familiar is precisely why true progress often feels like such an arduous uphill struggle. It demands immense perseverance.
So it's not fundamentally a lack of willpower then when we slip back. It's just this insidious comfort zone trap that the subconscious has meticulously constructed around us. The material explains that the subconscious's primary directive is to vigilantly keep you safe. That's its job. And it equates safety, above all else, with familiarity, what it knows. That makes so much sense. Because even the most desired, seemingly positive changes, like pursuing a dream career or building a healthy new relationship, can trigger immense subconscious resistance, which then manifests as self-doubt, anxiety, or crippling procrastination, simply because the subconscious perceives them as unknown and therefore inherently risky, even if consciously we desperately want them.
Exactly. Think of your comfort zone not just as a preference, but as an invisible, highly guarded fence around you. The very moment you attempt to step outside of it, even just a little bit, a whole barrage of alarms goes off in your subconscious. That's the discomfort, the fear, this visceral discomfort you feel, the anxiety, the urge to retreat. It isn't a sign of your incapability. It's not a message that you're doing something wrong. It's merely your subconscious system adjusting, recalibrating to something novel. The crucial empowering insight here is that the only way to genuinely expand your comfort zone, to integrate new behaviors and beliefs, is to consistently push through that initial, often intense, uncomfortable resistance long enough for the unfamiliar to become not just familiar, but deeply integrated and perceived as safe. You have to actively train your brain to see the new as the new normal. It takes time and repetition.
So how do we actually reprogram the subconscious, the science of neural rewiring? How do we do that training? We keep coming back to neuroplasticity, which is the brain's astonishing ability to physically rewire itself through repeated experiences. Habits, both positive and negative, are so strong because their neural pathways are literally strengthened like muscles by relentless repetition.
Precisely. And this is where the profound hope lies. Just as old, limiting patterns were painstakingly built and reinforced over years, new, empowering ones can be installed using the same principles. The scientific key lies in the potent combination of consistent repetition and intense emotional engagement. The subconscious learns through relentless, consistent reinforcement, not by hearing something once or thinking about it fleetingly, but by experiencing it, feeling it, acting on it over and over again until it truly becomes the new, effortless default. This understanding forms the scientific bedrock for why practices like daily affirmations, vivid visualization, and consistent, deliberate action are so incredibly powerful. They're not magic spells. They're literally physically rewiring your brain. They're strengthening new neural connections and, importantly, actively replacing or pruning the old, unhelpful ones.
Okay, give me a concrete example. Let's take that I'm not confident belief again. If someone has believed that for years, maybe decades, how does that deep rewiring actually happen at a practical daily level?
Right, if you've spent years internalizing the belief, I'm not confident, your brain has developed deep, wide neural pathways, firmly reinforcing that identity. That's like a superhighway for that thought. Simply telling yourself, I am confident. Once in the mirror, well, it won't override decades of programming. It's like trying to divert that superhighway with a single traffic cone. The true rewiring requires a multi-pronged, consistent approach. Daily practice. You must repeatedly visualize yourself acting with profound confidence in various scenarios. See yourself succeeding, hear people praising you, feel the feeling of confidence. You need to start taking small, tangible actions that reinforce confidence. It could be as simple as making eye contact with strangers more often, speaking up just once in a meeting, or volunteering for a small task you'd normally avoid. And crucially, you must consciously create and attach new, powerful emotional experiences to these confident actions. You have to feel it. Feel the excitement of success. Feel the pride of overcoming that small challenge. Celebrate it internally. Over time, through this consistent emotionally charged repetition, visualization, action, emotion, those new neural pathways for confidence become increasingly stronger, wider, and more dominant, while the old pathways for not confident begin to wither and weaken from lack of use. The material describes this as reaching a tipping point. It's that pivotal moment when the new desired belief becomes so much stronger than the old one. That change suddenly becomes effortless, natural, almost automatic. Much like learning to drive a car eventually becomes second nature. You no longer have to consciously struggle. Your mind just takes over and executes the new program with ease. That's the goal.
That's a truly excellent metaphor. The tipping point makes it so tangible. So we're really talking about three essential, interconnected steps for achieving this deep reprogramming consistently. First, exposure. Flooding your mind with a new reality. The subconscious, as you said, forms its beliefs based on frequent, consistent exposure to information.
Yes. Think about it logically. If you grew up in an environment where people consistently struggled with money, or where success was portrayed as rare and maybe even selfish, those became deeply embedded subconscious programs. To change them, you must deliberately, actively expose your mind to a new reality, a different possibility. This means consciously surrounding yourself with people who embody the qualities you desire. Seek out mentors. Join groups where people are successful, happy, or confident. It means meticulously curating the content you consume. Stop doom scrolling, maybe. Read books that inspire growth. Listen to mentors and podcasts that align with the mindset you're trying to build. Watch media that reflect the reality you want to create. The more your subconscious sees and experiences something as normal, as achievable, as the new standard, the more it will begin to align itself and filter reality to match that new desired state. It's like giving your subconscious new empowering data points to process consistently.
Right, changing the input. And then the second step is repetition, strengthening new neural pathways. This clearly isn't about quick fixes or overnight transformations, is it? It requires patience and persistence.
Absolutely not. Subconscious change is inherently gradual. It's a persistent evolution driven by relentless, consistent repetition. Like building muscle, you must actively and relentlessly reinforce new beliefs, essentially grounding out and overriding the old, unwanted ones with sheer volume and consistency, until the new beliefs become the unshakable default operating system. This is precisely why daily practices like consistent heartfelt affirmations, not just rote rustition, and vivid visualization are not just suggested, they are absolutely crucial components. They are your daily mental workouts, your consistent practice, building neural muscle memory within your brain. Each repetition is like another brick laid in the foundation of your new mental architecture.
Okay. And the third step, which the material emphasizes as perhaps the most powerful catalyst, is emotional intensity, making the new reality feel real. Because the subconscious doesn't just respond to logic or repetition alone, it responds most powerfully, most quickly to emotion.
This is truly where the magic happens, where intellectual understanding transmutes into tangible, lived reality. You must attach strong, visceral, positive emotions to your new beliefs and visualizations. Don't just mechanically say an affirmation. Feel the truth of it in your body. As you visualize, truly immerse yourself. Vividly see your success. Feel the rush of excitement in your chest. Embody the feeling of confidence in your posture. Sense the deep joy of achievement. The more emotionally real and palpable you make this new reality in your inner world, the faster and more completely your subconscious accepts it as fundamental truth. It makes it a command rather than just a suggestion. Think about the profound emotional impact of a powerful movie scene or a deeply moving song. Those create strong, lasting neural connections precisely because of the intense emotion they evoke. You can harness that very same power intentionally to reprogram yourself.
And at the absolute core of all this reprogramming, underpinning every single strategy, is what the material calls the power of identity. It's about fundamentally changing who you believe you are at the deepest level. It's not just changing habits, but identity. If you successfully shift your identity, say, from someone who consistently struggles with self-worth to someone who is inherently confident and highly capable, your subconscious will remarkably automatically align your actions, your thoughts, and your emotions to perfectly match that new declared identity. This makes the process of change feel natural, almost effortless, rather than a constant, exhausting, forced effort against yourself. That's an incredible concept because it suggests the change really happens from the inside out, fundamentally.
It is the ultimate, most profound shift you can make. You're not just changing what you do, you're changing who you fundamentally are at a subconscious core level. It's the difference between temporary behavior modification that might not last and a complete, sustainable internal transformation.
That brings us to the internal landscape of conquering the war within, overcoming resistance and self-sabotage. Hmm. The material vividly describes this as a very real, very tangible internal battle between the part of you that passionately craves growth, expansion, and reaching your highest potential, and the part that almost instinctively clings desperately to comfort, familiarity, and old limiting patterns, even if they make you miserable. And this persistent internal conflict, it says, is the fundamental root of all mental resistance, chronic procrastination, debilitating fear, and pervasive self-sabotage.
That internal battle is a universal human experience, absolutely. And understanding its true nature is incredibly liberating, not defeating. The material explains that your subconscious mind operates on a deeply primitive instinct. It views any significant change, anything unknown, as a potential threat. This holds true even if that change is consciously desired and undeniably beneficial, like achieving profound confidence, experiencing financial freedom, or finding true, healthy love. Your subconscious deeply links familiarity with an inherent sense of safety, even if that familiarity is with pain, struggle, or limitation. This is precisely why people sometimes find themselves perpetually stuck in toxic relationships, clinging desperately to jobs they despise, or remaining in circumstances that actively diminish them. It's often not due to a lack of intelligence or willpower or even discipline in the conscious sense. It's because the subconscious, in its archaic programming, prioritizes that familiar, albeit destructive safety over unfamiliar potential happiness.
Wow, so self-sabotage isn't a moral flaw then, or a sign of weakness, but a deeply ingrained survival mechanism, a kind of internal defense system against the unknown, against uncertainty. That's truly a mind-blowing reframing of something so many of us experience as a deep personal failing.
It is truly one of the most powerful and compassionate insights the material offers. The subconscious, as the material explains, cares profoundly about predictability. It craves it, needs it, far more than it cares about your conscious concepts of happiness or success. Those are abstract to it. If struggle or discomfort or even a particular negative outcome has become familiar over time, it's instinctively perceived as a safe known quantity, and your mind will subtly yet powerfully pull you back to it, almost like an invisible bungee cord whenever you try to move too far away too fast. This profound mechanism explains why people find themselves returning to the same toxic relationship patterns again and again, why they chronically procrastinate on genuinely life-changing opportunities that feel scary, or why they even, bafflingly, seem to sabotage their own happiness just when it appears to be finally within their grasp. They are unconsciously, yet relentlessly, trying to keep things exactly the same, to maintain that predictability, even if the same is undeniably destructive and unfulfilling. The incredibly good news, however, the real hope here, is that truly understanding this powerful hidden mechanism empowers you to break free. You can now consciously, deliberately rewire your subconscious to see profound change and expansive success, not as a threat, but as natural, safe, and immensely desirable. You teach it a new definition of safety.
So we need to learn to identify these faces of resistance as they show up in our daily lives, become detectives of our own minds. The first one the material highlights is procrastination, the illusion of later. It's presented not as laziness, which is how we usually frame it, but as fear in a very clever disguise. A subconscious delay tactic that kicks in when a task is perceived, subconsciously, as some kind of threat.
Exactly. Whether that perceived threat is the fear of failure, the discomfort of uncertainty, or the sheer anxiety of pushing outside your established comfort zone. Procrastination is your mind's deeply ingrained, subtle solution to delay the perceived pain or risk associated with action. And it's often a self-reinforcing cycle. The more you delay, the bigger and more daunting the task becomes in your mind, and the more fear it generates, leading to even further delay. It snowballs. The material wisely points out that the temporary discomfort of decisive action, even imperfect action, is almost invariably less painful in the long run than the prolonged corrosive regret of inaction. The key is to break that cycle immediately by taking even the tiniest first step, just to get momentum going.
hmm The second phase is overthinking, the paralysis of endless thought. This is something I think so many of us struggle with, especially in our hyper-analytical, information-overloaded world. It's described as an endless loop of analysis, constantly turning things over and over, creating the illusion of progress or diligence. But in reality, it actively prevents any meaningful action from ever being taken.
It's a very sophisticated mental trap, isn't it? It keeps you perpetually suspended in hesitation, meticulously analyzing every possible scenario, every potential consequence, all in an unconscious effort to meticulously avoid the perceived risk of failure or making the wrong decision. It's a form of mental self-sabotage, often masquerading as being responsible or thorough. The potent cure, according to the material, is to consciously learn to trust yourself more, to make a decisive choice, even an imperfect one sometimes, and then crucially move forward. Take action based on that decision. Action, it powerfully notes, teaches you infinitely more and far more rapidly than endless contemplation ever will. Life's true lessons, the real data, are learned in the arena of action, not in the stands of your mind just watching.
Right, action provides feedback. And the third phase, which the material powerfully calls the silent assassin of potential, is self-doubt. This operates at the very core of your identity, doesn't it? Relentlessly questioning your fundamental worth or your innate ability to achieve anything significant.
This is arguably the most dangerous and insidious form of resistance because it strikes at the root. External validation, no matter how abundant or sincere it might be from others, often won't override deep-seated internal programming if the subconscious fundamentally believes I'm not good enough or I'm not worthy or I'll inevitably fail. The robust solution, then, is twofold, working from both ends. First, to consciously and consistently reprogram your self-image at its root, using the identity shifting techniques we discussed, changing that core belief. And second, to actively starve self-doubt of its fuel by rigorously and consistently proving it wrong through repeated courageous action, however small. Each small win, each step taken despite the doubt screaming in your ear, is a direct challenge to its authority. It slowly, steadily erodes its power over you.
Okay, so given these formidable internal disblock procrastination, overthinking, self-doubt, how do we finally override resistance and take back control? The material gives us some truly practical, immediately actionable strategies we can use right away. First, it introduces the 5-second rule, a powerful technique popularized by Mel Robbins. The moment you feel that familiar whisper of resistance, that urge to procrastinate, that flash of fear, that pull into overthinking, you literally count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then immediately physically move and take action on your intention.
This technique is ingeniously designed. It acts like a neurological circuit breaker. It bypasses your brain's ancient fight-or-flight response, which is the mechanism that triggers hesitation, freezing, and pulling back. By acting immediately, within that crucial 5-second window before the resistance fully takes hold, you effectively train your brain to associate movement, initiative, and decisive action with confidence and control, rather than associating inaction with safety or fear. It's a quick, decisive countermove to the subconscious's automatic delay tactics. It rewires that response loop through action. It forces your brain to create a new, positive association with just starting.
Simple but powerful. Then there's gradual exposure, often known as exposure therapy in a more clinical context, since resistance is primarily triggered by the unfamiliar, by the unknown. The material suggests that consistent, small-scale exposure to the very thing you fear or resist is the absolute key to overcoming it. You ease into changes gradually rather than attempting drastic, overwhelming shifts that just trigger massive resistance.
This is fundamentally crucial for building sustainable, long-term change without burning out or giving up. If you harbor a deep-seated fear of public speaking, for example, don't immediately try to deliver a huge keynote address. That's setting yourself up for failure, probably. Start by practicing your speech just in front of a mirror daily. Then maybe record yourself on your phone. Then speak to one trusted friend. Then perhaps to a small, supportive group. Build up. If you struggle with self-promotion or sharing your talents online, start by simply posting one small, self-affirming thought or a tiny piece of your work. Baby steps. Intentionally and consistently put yourself in progressively challenging, yet still manageable situations, until the previously uncomfortable becomes not just normal, but maybe even comfortable or even enjoyable. Each small, brave step weakens the old fear response pathway and strengthens the new, confident pathway. It's incremental progress.
It's total sense. And finally, returning to a concept we discussed earlier because it's so central, shifting identity. The material powerfully states that your subconscious will consistently align your actions and your reality with your deepest held identity, who you believe you are. If you continue to identify as someone who habitually hesitates, who doubts their capabilities, who procrastinates, then that will inevitably be your ongoing reality. The behavior follows the identity. So the key here is to consciously, deliberately step into a new, desired identity before you even feel fully ready or capable. Act as if.
Yes. This is truly the pinnacle of personal transformation, where the change becomes effortless. You must use powerful, emotionally charged affirmations that declare your new identity as present reality, right now. Not, I will be, but I am. I am a confident, articulate speaker now. I am the kind of person who creates success effortlessly. I am resilient and overcome challenges with grace and ease. The more consistently and authentically you affirm and embody this new identity in your thoughts, feelings, and actions, the more your subconscious will internalize it as your actual truth. And consequently, it will automatically align your behavior, your thoughts, and your emotional responses to perfectly match that new identity, making the desired change feel natural, organic, and truly effortless, rather than a constant forced battle against yourself. You literally become who you declare yourself to be internally first.
This is so incredibly empowering. It really puts the power, the agency back in the listener's hands, which takes us beautifully to the final act of this deep dive, embodying the new you, identity, and effortless change. So what does mastering the art of mental freedom truly mean at the end of the day? Because it's clearly not about silencing every negative thought or erasing all emotions, is it? That sounds like unhealthy suppression.
No, absolutely not. That's a common misconception, and frankly, an unhealthy goal. True mental control, as the material profoundly explains, is about becoming the calm, detached observer of your own mind, like watching clouds pass in the sky. It's the highly refined skill of being able to analyze your thoughts, to witness your emotions as they arise, with a sense of neutral detachment, choosing deliberately which thoughts to engage with, which ones to entertain and act upon, and which to simply acknowledge without judgment and then consciously let go, allowing them to drift away. It's the cultivated skill of recognizing when fear or old programming or external influences are attempting to manipulate your internal state, and then consciously deciding to act in unwavering alignment with your higher goals, your core values, and your highest potential, rather than being automatically swept away by old unconscious conditioning or fleeting emotional reactions. It's about mastering your focus so deeply, so consistently, that external distractions and internal noise lose their magnetic grip. You choose where your precious mental energy flows.
Okay, so mental mastery is ultimately about shifting from being a passive reactor to circumstances and internal states, to becoming an active chooser of your responses, your focus, your internal state. It's moving from being at the mercy of unconscious programming to truly being the architect of your own mind. And the mind, then, isn't an enemy to be conquered or silenced, but it's our most powerful, potentially unstoppable tool, like a wild, magnificent horse that, once patiently trained and understood, becomes an incredible force, an unwavering partner in achieving our deepest desires.
But that is the beautiful, powerful essence of it. A partnership, not a battle. And this understanding leads directly into training the mind, daily rituals for mental strength, because it takes training. Just like building physical strength requires consistent exercise, mental strength is not innate. It's not something you're just born with or without. It is meticulously built, painstakingly cultivated, and consistently maintained through deliberate practice. It requires daily, consistent training, much like a muscle.
So daily mental conditioning is absolutely key. It's not optional for mastery. The material powerfully highlights the importance of a structured morning routine. Before the external noise of the world rushes in, before the demands and distractions begin to flood your awareness, you take intentional control of your thoughts first thing. You meticulously set intentions. Not just for what you'll do throughout the day, but profoundly who you will choose to be, how you will show up.
Absolutely. This sets your mental compass for the entire day ahead. It's proactive, not reactive. Then there's visualization. And again, this is not mere daydreaming or wishful thinking. It's a powerful neuroscientific technique. Your brain, remarkably, does not clearly differentiate between a truly vivid, emotionally charged, internally imagined experience and an actual, real-life physical experience. It processes both similarly. When you consistently and vividly visualize success, when you deeply feel yourself embodying your highest, most confident, most capable self, your brain begins to accept that visualization as an undeniable reality. It creates the neural pathways as if it has already occurred. This makes those desired actions and responses far more natural, more automatic, and effortlessly accessible when you face those situations in real life. This isn't wishful thinking. It is applied neuroscience in action. You are quite literally rehearsing your desired future in your mind's eye.
Rehearsing the future, I like that. And then intentional self-talk. This is something many of us do unconsciously all day long, often negatively, unfortunately. But the material shows how we can harness it consciously for our benefit. Every repeated thought, every word you utter to yourself internally strengthens specific neural pathways in your brain. It carves grooves. Your words are not just sounds or fleeting thoughts. They are direct, powerful commands to your subconscious mind. So consciously engaging in powerful, positive self-affirmations like, I am capable, I am unstoppable, I effortlessly attract abundance, I handle challenges with ease, doesn't just make you feel momentarily good, it literally leads your brain to systematically align your actions, your choices, your perceptions, and your entire outlook with those deeply ingrained beliefs. You consciously command your own internal narrative.
This consistent, intentional self-talk literally rewrites your internal narrative over time. It creates new, empowering neural pathways that robustly support your desired identity and outcomes. It's like your internal GPS system is constantly recalibrating based on the directions you consciously give it.
And to make all this profound self-mastery possible, to truly embody this new identity and make these practices stick, we need to be incredibly vigilant about reclaiming focus, guarding your mental energy. This feels more important now than ever. The material identifies distraction as perhaps the single greatest modern threat to achieving mental mastery. With pervasive social media, constant breaking news cycles, and relentless notifications explicitly designed, often, to hijack our focus and scatter our thoughts into 1,000 different directions.
It is a constant, subtle, yet powerful assault on our mental real estate, on our ability to think deeply and intentionally. The material stresses the absolute importance of developing ruthless, uncompromising discipline over your focus. This isn't a passive suggestion. It's an active daily battle you have to choose to fight for your mental sovereignty. You need to consciously set clear boundaries. With technology, maybe schedule off times, turning off notifications. Drastically reduce your exposure to negativity, whether it's from relentless news cycles, toxic social media feeds, or even certain draining conversations or people. Meticulously design your physical environment to minimize internal and external distractions as much as possible. and rigorously train your brain to resist the constant allure of instant gratification and cheap dopamine hits. Train your focus like a muscle. The stronger, more unwavering your focus becomes, the more absolute control you gain over your thoughts, your emotions, and ultimately, your lived reality. It's not a one-time decision. It's a continuous, deliberate practice of presence and intentionality.
So the ultimate outcome, the final transformation, becoming the master of your mind. What does this incredible state actually look and feel like for the listener who commits fully to this journey? What's the payoff?
The material describes a truly incredible, almost superhuman state, in a way,
Mhm.
becoming fundamentally unshakable. In this state of mastery, fear no longer paralyzes you. It might still arise, but it doesn't dictate your actions. Those insidious negative thoughts that once haunted you and derailed you no longer control your actions or your overall mood. You see them, but don't fuse with them. External circumstances, no matter how challenging they might be, no longer dictate your internal emotional landscape. You choose your response. You've meticulously built an inner world, an inner fortress, so strong, so resilient, so aligned with your highest self that very little can truly shake it to its core. You have inner stability.
And the ultimate, most liberating realization that comes with this hard-won mastery.
That you were never truly limited in the first place. That's the big reveal. The formidable walls of your mental prison, the self-imposed boundaries you've lived within for so long, were in reality nothing more than powerful illusions, constructed entirely from your own perceptions, your own limiting beliefs, often absorbed unconsciously. And those illusions, those perceptions, they lose all their power the very moment they're consciously questioned, challenged, examined, and ultimately shattered by new awareness and action. You were never inherently lacking anything essential. You were simply powerfully conditioned to believe so. Wow. That's incredibly freeing. And the final, most crucial step, really, is to actually live from this new, liberated reality. Every day. Don't just understand these profound principles intellectually. Hoard the knowledge. Embody them in every fiber of your being, in your actions, in your choices. Don't just think about mental mastery or wish for it. Practice it rigorously, consistently, every single day, in the small moments and the big ones. Because as the material powerfully leaves us with, the world truly belongs to those who have mastered their minds. They shape their reality.
That war within your mind. It's not just some poetic metaphor. It's a very real battle for your deepest potential, happening all the time. But here's the ultimate liberating truth we've uncovered today. You are the one who can win. You have the power. The struggle dissolves, the hesitation fades, the resistance crumbles when you learn to work with your mind, when you train it patiently, when you guide it consciously, instead of constantly, exhaustingly battling against its powerful, unseen, often misunderstood forces.
It's about shifting your entire paradigm, transforming from feeling like a passive prisoner of your own internal programming to becoming the deliberate, empowered architect of your own destiny, thought by thought, choice by choice.
So, the question we leave you with, our incredible listener, as you step away from this deep dive today is this. Who will you choose to be from this very moment forward? Will you retreat, perhaps by default, back into living in the old patterns and limitations of your past? Back into the comfortable but confining scripts you've inherited or created? Or will you consciously, courageously step fully and unapologetically into your inherent power right now? Leaving behind every single limitation, every shadow of doubt, every lingering fear that once held you